morning. Annie Smith, Chief of Investigations for JSO. This morning I want to talk to you about in-custody death that we had this morning at UF Health. The subject that has passed, his name is David Bush, date of birth 10/12/51. We'll provide you with his criminal history. He was also the subject of the SWAT call-out last Friday on the 13th. And subsequent to that, as you know, he was arrested for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and admitted under the Baker Act for potential self-harm, where he was placed at Shands. Our policy at JSO, we contract with G4S Security. Once we're relieved by them, they take over the care and custody of the inmate at that time. The subject had a history of mental health and substance abuse problems. At 5:02 this morning, a medical staffer discovered him unresponsive in his bed, and it appeared that he had taken his own life by strangling himself with one of the cords inside his hospital room. That's what our investigation has led us to so far. There's no signs of foul play, every indication that it was a suicide. I'll take any questions.
Dana Train, time period, he was at the hospital the entire time. He
Yes.
was taken from the incident to the hospital, and that's where he was found deceased this
Yes.
morning. Okay.
He was in his bed with 4-point restraints and completely covered up, laying on his side when he was found. So if you were to walk in and just look at him, it would have appeared that he was sleeping until you...
How would he be able to commit suicide if he was restrained in the bed?
Well, you have a little bit of leeway in the restraints, and you know, we're not exactly sure how he managed to do it, but we just started the investigation this morning, but we'll figure out how he managed to do it.
What was the cord?
It was one of the cords in the room. I believe it was attached to the wall for the call button, where if there's an emergency, you can press the button. That cord is attached to the wall, and it's quite lengthy if you pull on it.
It was something that he would reach to make a call. It was something that he would have been able to reach, though.
Apparently he was able to reach it.
Any other questions on it?
The subject, you said the subject
You identify yourself.
was part of what investigation?
Your name and who you're with?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff Sellon, WJXT.
He was part of the investigation from last Friday, the 13th, where we had a SWAT call out at 15 and Witcher Road, where he was taken into custody. He had been threatening to harm himself at that time, and he was armed with a firearm, which caused the SWAT team to go out and respond. They took him into custody there and took him to the hospital for his mental health issues as well as his substance abuse and physical issues.
What are the responsibilities of JSO once he's at the hospital and he is under supervision and things like that?
Well, G4S is our contracted security company, and when our officers are relieved by them, they're charged with the care and custody of the inmate until they're deemed healthy enough by the hospital medical staff to be placed into our jail, which ultimately would have been where he would have come afterwards.
Dana Train, again, were they supposed to look at him at certain intervals? Like, I know when they're in certain custody
Yes.
here,
We collected all of their logs, the log from the security officer and his supervisor of when the subject was checked on, and that's all being scrutinized closely as to who was supposed to be watching them and when.
Is there an interval time that they're supposed to check on him, 15 minutes or 20 minutes?
There is.
Do you know
They're
what the
required to document that they check on him every 15 minutes.
Every 15 minutes, and you're checking to see now that that was done.
Yes, we want to make sure that every policy and procedure was followed, because as I said, they are contracted through us, and ultimately they are our responsibility. They're our contracted provider to do that particular service.
Who is that company?
G4S.
G4S.
Any other questions on this?
Robert Jackson, Action News. Did he ever state, or do y'all know a reason why he wanted to kill himself at the house? And like, why did he want to kill himself? Do y'all know why?
I don't know. The nurse at the hospital said that he was uncooperative. He was not combative, but he would, when they would put the IV lines in his arm, he didn't want to be helped. But he never said anything about taking his own life, and he wasn't combative. He just was uncooperative.
Jamie Smith with Action News. Do we know, when we look at the logs, when he was last alive?
We know through the logs what times that he was checked on from the guards' logs themselves. I mean, we'll have to interview them extensively and figure out what went on in between what they wrote on the piece of paper. But right now, that's what we have. We've collected all of that.
At what time was that?
I don't have that information exactly, and really I don't want to release that because there's going to be more to it than just what's on that piece of paper. We need to interview everyone who saw him and get some exact times. Right now, very preliminary, this just happened a couple of hours ago. We've got to sit down and interview everyone that was involved to see exactly who talked to him and when, and what they did when they did contact him.
Do we have access to booking photos of those?
Yes, the PIO will provide you with his criminal history and any of that information. Okay. If y'all stand by, Lieutenant Schoonover